All right, hey, we're live streaming. So I was working on a new feature for my game. I was trying to make it so that I can interact and have a dialogue system for one of the NPCs in my game. And I thought it would be fun to start live streaming and share, my progress and some other things about what I'm doing for my game and my experience using Nim to code the thing and all that. So yeah, I don't expect to get too many views since I haven't streamed in a long time. So hopefully this will just live in the back catalog for anyone that wants to get caught up uh, on the game, or if anyone wants to see the progress of the game, how it was developed and all that. Um, so yeah, let me send a link. Let me ping the Discord server just to make sure that they know that I'm live streaming. All right. Okay, so the first thing I want to do, I got started building out the dialogable component. This is a component for my entity component system. Um, a few things that I need to do though is actually get it registered so that I can add it to this entity I called tadword. So the first thing I want to do is make sure that I implement save load. This is just a macro that makes it so that I can save and load this debuggable object. It also makes sure that it conforms to a uh, a concept, which is it's similar to an interface in Nim. So once I do that, I can go over to the components file. I kind of wish I didn't have to do this registry thing, but it actually makes my life a lot easier with exporting and importing components. So I might think about how to get rid of it at some point, but we'll see. Okay, I'm already exporting dialogues. And let's register that as a component. So I should be able to compile now. Let's see. My bitrate, it looks like it's starting to lag a bit. So if anyone's watching, if they can tell me how the quality of the stream is, I'd appreciate that. The stream's current bitrate is lower than the recommended bitrate. I was having some troubles getting my this is honestly why I've had such a hard time streaming recently is the NVIDIA drivers. I have an NVIDIA GPU. It doesn't work too well with H.264 encoding. It's kind of hard to get running. Okay, so let's see. JSON. Oh, I need to move this after I create the operator to convert a dialog ID into JSON. Okay, so things are compiling. So I should be able to now add the dialogable component here. And if I run, let's make sure everything is working. Oop, actually that's not how to do it. Let's initialize a new dialogable component. So my idea for the dialogues are I want to load them from a file. That way, in the future, if I wanted to make a uh, expansion pack, I don't want to have to edit the code. I can just create brand new dialog trees just from a text file. This also helps with what's the word? Region-specific conversations and dialogues that I want to have, so I can support other languages and things like that. This is Tadword. Actually these two are characters that are in the game. You won't be playing as either of them. I'm just using them as a placeholder for right now. So my goal is so that when you walk up to them, I want to make it so that there's a little dialogue prompt, and then you hit a button, and then they're given dialogue depending on the current state of the game and how far you are along will pop up. Maybe I should just demonstrate or show off the game a little bit. These orange lines, you're not actually going to be able to see them in the final build. This is just debug. I made it so that it's kind of like a navigation mesh where you can click anywhere on it, or yeah, and it will take you to the nearest point on it. And it's the same system I'm using throughout the game to travel across the world. So I have this world map. You can, like, if I want to travel clear over to here, I can select the destination. Let's go to Applegate. You can see a lot of debug shapes, so please forgive the the debug stuff. But oh, I haven't tested this in a while, so it looks like it's pausing the game with the notification. But anyway, along you can think of it kind of like an Oregon Trail game mixed with a potion crafting game. That's kind of the goal I'm going for. Okay, so we have a dialogable component and has a dialog ID. So I think what I want to do is let's just create some data for the dialogues, and let's see if we can load them. Actually, one thing I need to do is create a dialog object. Let's do that up here. So dialog is going to have an ID. It's going to have the contents. It's going to have potentially some options. So that's going to be a sequence of, let's just make it a string for now. And then let's have a next ID. Something like that. And then each of these can have, let's do a dialog option. So I'm just kind of domain modeling the dialog system, just coming up with how it's all going to work. So a dialog option, so this is going to be like, you know, they pop in, they ask you a few questions, you can select from a list. So I'm going to say question, or let's just make it text. Actually, I want to make this text as well. Text, and let's go next ID. I'm going to say the exit, dialog exit is going to be a empty string. So if you ever see, if this is ever an ID, which I think is the default, then we'll know, let's put it down here. We'll know that it's time to exit the dialog. Okay, so let's see. Let's make this the dialog option. And let's do that. So let's get these loading and saving to a file. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to define a table of dialogues. Maybe I'll spell it like this. And I'm going to make it something like this. Make a dialog ID. Just make it the demo conversation. And we'll just define it as a dialog. Actually, let's put it down here. Okay. And let's do, or let's actually name this start. Maybe I'll name this a conversation. Conversation will just be a table, at least for now. We'll make this the exit, and we'll say the text for this one is hello. How may I help you? Dialog ID. So maybe I need to define this as a list because I don't really like having to define the dialog ID twice, you know. It's just a little bit more error prone if I edit it. Yo, Dustin, long time no see. It has been a long time. I will admit that. Life just gets busy, you know, and it's hard to put time towards you know, streaming and recording and all that. So the next dialog, I'm just going to make it go to the exit. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of plans though. Like I really want to continue with a few series that I started, like Raylib. Raylib 5 came out. I think it's Raylib 5. And it is honestly really, it's really great, and I want to make a video on how continue the tutorial series for it. I also want to work on, I have been working on a Love2D hot reloading video. The problem is I'm out of my elements, you know. It's whenever I make a video, it takes a lot of effort, you know, just and I want it to be really high quality as well, and sometimes that's my, I guess, desire for it to be really high quality gets in the way. So we're gonna make it so that we can load a conversation. to make it so we can save a conversation. Yep, and I'm hoping that with this game, I really need to start getting an online presence again. That way I can start, actually promoting the project. It's better to make a very informative video while being slow. It is, it is. I 100% agree. The problem is I want it to also be entertaining, Like, I can make a very boring, dry video, and those are my favorite kind of videos to make. It's just, convincing others to watch it. It's kind of difficult. All right, so what am I doing? Let's actually make this a type. Let's make conversation a type. This will be a table of dialog ID to dialog. All right, cool. Well, I have some ideas of just really obscure videos I'd like to make. I've been a huge fan of the Lisp family of languages. I've read Structures and Interpretations of Computer Programs, and there's a lot of things in that book that really bounces around in my head, and I really want to show off. It's just it's a textbook. It's not super interesting to a lot of people, but yeah, I'd like to make it. And then there's a few like really interesting C projects. I think like the Born Again shell, the way it started. Make this a to JSON operator. The way it started using like this really crazy macro language, I think it's really cool. It's basically its own like language built in C that can I just do? Let's just try that, and I'm gonna do when is made module. Let's load conversation, and we're gonna need some kind of conversation ID. Potentially. Actually, let's make it maybe this can be a path. So the first thing I want to do is I want to save a conversation so that I don't have to handwrite all the JSON. So let's turn this back into a conversation. Demo convo. It's a conversation. It is equal to. Actually, let's keep this. Whoops. I want to stream more Nim. The problem is it is kind of a difficult language to stream because it is kind of a new language. I mean, new relatively speaking. It just you run into a lot of weird little quirks here and there. Okay, here we go. I'm thinking of stopping to program in Lua. I was going to learn C and Lua. Lua for gamedev, then C for increasing my knowledge on programming. Then realized Lua isn't that good for web. Okay, so I would say yes, you're 100% correct with web development. That being said, though, itch.io, that really awesome games website. It's one of my favorite websites, and it's actually written 100% in Lua. Maybe not 100%, but it's written in Lua. The backend is for it. The creator of it is the creator of the what is that language called? Let me pull it up. It's a Lua. It compiles to Lua. Lunar script or something. See, this is why I don't stream. It's because I get these mental like blocks all the time where I'm trying to remember something that I have looked at and used for a long time. Okay, MoonScript, that's what it's called. So he created MoonScript and he built a web framework called yeah, thank you. Yes, MoonScript. Yeah, Lapis, exactly. And it is a pretty cool web library. Let me bring that up actually. There's a new version of MoonScript called UScript that is a little bit more updated. Personally, like I think it's cool. I'm not really a huge fan of the kind of CoffeeScript-like language. Lapis framework. But if you're into it, then it's a pretty nice language to work with. But yeah, if anyone wants to try out web development in Love2D or in Lua, then this is how you can do it, and this is what it looks like in MoonScript or UScript, whatever you want to call it. All right, so we have a conversation up here. Let's write to the demo conversation. So we're gonna get the JSON. We're gonna do this operator on the demo convo, and I just want to print the JSON to see what it looks like. Entities, components, dialogues. All right. Oh, you wanted to use it for the front end. Yeah, the things that I've seen that that use Lua on the front end, it's just not that great. It's usually a I need to move this conversation. Yeah, it's usually just like a JavaScript interpreter of Lua. I'm not sure of too many. There's probably a JavaScript compiler or Lua to the JavaScript transpiler, but um, I don't know. I would just use JavaScript, honestly. JavaScript and Svelte or HTMX. Okay, so we're running into a recursive issue, and that's because I am doing this. So let's specify some of the JSON. Dialogues. What am I missing? Because I have, oh, I can't wait until Nim implements the code reordering. I know there's an experimental one, but I'm a little hesitant to use it for a production project like I'm trying to make this. I think I need to create a operator for converting a table of dialog ID to dialog. Okay, so how do I want to do this? Let's do result is equal to the JSON node. I've done this before. Let me see. I do it quite often because there's no default operator for these things. Okay, so dialog ID, dialog. Okay, we'll stick with that. All right, there we go. So we have some JSON. Nice. Okay, so I want to prettyify it and then write to a file. So let's do that. Write file. Let's make sure we import standard OS. We'll write it in the resources, data. Eventually, all these will be baked into the executable as well. And we'll name this, let's create a new folder called conversations. And then we'll do demo.json. And we will write js.pretty like that. All right, let's try this out. Okay, so let's check the conversations, and we have a serialized conversation. So now in the future, I can write a GUI to help edit these dialogues. I've been using, actually I have an editor for the project that I think is pretty sweet. Where would it be? Editor. I mean, it's obviously far from being perfect, but I've been using this library in Nim called Owl Kettle, like the animal owl kettle, for building GTK applications. And I can build a really nice looking just GTK app to edit game worlds and everything like that in Nim, just using this really sweet domain specific language. So I'm planning on building a bunch of tools to make actually creating dialogues and all that, pretty easy. It's obviously not that bad to just edit JSON as well, but that's not something I want to do. Okay, so we can write a demo conversation. So let's just do write demo convo. I'm just going to put this in a function in case I ever blow out all the data and I want to just have the basic shape of the JSON available again. So I'm going to do this, paste that there. All right. All right, so let's try loading this now. So we can do proc load. I think I already have a, do I have a load conversation? Yeah. I'm going to make this return a conversation. So we're going to read a file at the path. Perhaps I should try catch this. The tooling for nim, by the way, is still, it's gotten so much better, but it's still pretty sketchy with like autocomplete and all that. It's another reason why I've been having a hard time streaming nim, just because it looks pretty like janky, and I have to constantly search for things all the time. It's a little frustrating, but it's getting a lot better. All right, so we have some JSON now, and we can convert the JSON to a conversation, like so. Otherwise, we're just going to say result is equal to probably just an empty JSON node. I don't know. Maybe since this is optional, we should actually make it optional. Or for now, I'm worrying about this way too much. For now, let's just get it working. Okay, so let's make sure that we can load a conversation. And this needs to be conversation. Okay, like that. I'm going to pull in a library to make it so I can pretty print the object I get. Okay, let's try that. And actually, that's not what I want. That's not what I want. Let's try, nope, this. It's not doing what I want. Let me try echoing it. Oop, again, not what I wanted. Okay, what's going on? Dialogs.data. I need to do an init from JSON. So it's complaining because I'm doing a custom table. So I think it's complaining that there isn't a JSON node to table converter. Let me see how I've done this in the past. So the first argument is a mutable version of it. Okay. Still not sure what the path is for. I haven't had the need for it. We don't need to parse the enum. We just need to convert this to a dialog ID. And then the value be to dialog. Let's try that. Cool. So we can load and write our conversations with JSON. Sweet. And if you want to overload this operator, you can also make it write to YAML or anything else, which is pretty cool. Like I'm using YAML for one config file just to see how I like it. Otherwise, I'm generating a lot of JSON and stuff for the rest of the data. All right, so I'm just going to run and make sure everything's just working as before. I should have an F5. Why can't I press F5? Let's try this. Okay, so everything's building. And okay, so when we create a dialogable component, we need to pass in the dialog ID, and then we should probably validate that the dialog ID exists. And actually, no, this needs to be a conversation ID. So let's create a conversation ID. It's going to be another distinct string. That just means that you can't confuse a dialog ID for a string. You have to explicitly cast it. Whoops, what did I do? And then I'm going to borrow these functions off of a string. So that we can put it in a table and it's hashable and everything like that. And let's see. Let's give a conversation ID. I need to fix my data as well since it's going to complain that there's no ID. So I'm going to do conversation ID, and I'm just going to name it demo. And I'm also going to name, maybe I should just name this, maybe I should have just named this ID, but I don't know. Cool. So we can load a conversation from file. Maybe we should have like a conversation registry. So let's just create a table at the top here. Have tables, init table. And now do I want to make it so that when you load a conversation from file that it, well, let's do this. Maybe I'll actually make this get conversation. I might do something a little bit gnarly. What if we just, let me bring in a library. What if we just expect that the conversation, whoops, why did that why did that run? Maybe we just expect that the conversation ID is the same name as the file. That way I can just load it from disk. Eventually I'll memoize it so it doesn't reload everything from disk, but so it's going to be in resources. Does it not like it that it's a, I must have spelled it wrong. Go, and what if we just get conversation demo? I'm actually getting more views than I thought I would. 23 views, 6 concurrent. How's everyone doing? Losing track of what I'm doing. All right, let's do this. Oh, I see what I'm doing wrong. I'm spelling it conversation. Eventually, dialogable is going to have many conversation IDs, and they're all going to be activated and deactivated depending on the context of in how far within the game you are, all that stuff. Okay. Let's validate the conversation ID. So what we want to do is actually make this an option. And we want to try accept. It's probably an IO error actually. Could also be a parse error, so let's do catchable error. Then we'll do echo get current, what is it? Exception message. And then we'll just return none. I'm gonna import another library. You know, honestly, this is probably the part that I really hope the tooling gets better with in NIM, is I hate having to jump to the top of the file and import so many things. I wish there was and I was even thinking about creating a tool because the NIM compiler gives you a way to dump all of the dependencies of a module. So I was thinking of just dumping all those dependencies into a file, a really big file, like once or whenever you want, and then automatically handling imports and stuff. I don't know. I don't know if the NIM team have a plan for that or not. I thought it would be pretty nice to have something like that. So I'm gonna do if some convert, or let's do, maybe I'll just assert. It's probably not a great solution, but I just want to make sure that, so in the future I'll just load them all up at once and then check the table, and maybe I need to do that right now actually. So many decisions. Alright, let me try. Let's say if conversations table contains the conversation, then we will return that. Result is equal to conversations, get key or ID. This still needs to be optional. Otherwise, if it doesn't have the key, then we want to try and load it. And then if we do load it, let's write to the conversations table. Like that. Then now I can just do a, what's up? Are we happy? Happy. Okay. Okay, so now let's just assert that. Yeah, and then, yeah, I should probably load all of the files from disk. Okay, let's just do this again and call it good for now. Let's make sure that compiles. Does not. And we need to pass in a dialog. Okay, so let's just pass in demo, cast it to a conversation ID. Now, actually, eventually I want to make this so I can statically check that our conversation is loaded. That way I just can pass in the ID, and at compile time it'll complain. And maybe I'll do that right now. So let's just go nuts with this, and let's make this a compile time thing. Compile time, and I want it to just open a block for now. Stay pretty much the same. And I don't want these to, well, I'm going to keep this for now. Okay, so we want to iterate through all the files in this datas directory. So we're going to do for thing in walk dir resources data conversations. How does this work? I know I've done this before, so let me check my work. Oh, so I made it static, a static block, which I think makes sense. And then this doesn't need to be written to ever. Well, okay, eventually maybe, because we want to have runtime conversations so that you can extend the game. I think that'd be pretty fun. All right, so let's do walk dir. Okay, I see. Okay, I see. Path. If the path is not a file, then we're going to just continue. Otherwise, we want to have our table up here. And we want to add to the table. So let's grab our get conversation. And we'll just put that up. This whole thing needs to actually go down. Let's put it down here. And let's pull out, or let's move this up here. And we'll do table, or let c equals load conversation from file. Path dot, come on, autocomplete, path. So we have a conversation now, and then we can write to our table c dot conversation ID is equal to c. And then what we can do is we could just return this table at the end here. So now at compile time, we can check if a conversation exists. I'm gonna get rid of this. I'm gonna get rid of this. So let's make this a. I might be able to make this static. I think this is how it works. Oops. And then we can static assert that conversations has key ID. Okay, let's play around with that and see what that does. Compile. Okay, so it says it's compiled. So now if I do test, sometimes my editor will update and it will show me red squigglies for compile time, stuff like that. All right, perfect. So if I give it a ID that doesn't exist in the table, then it'll complain at me at compile time. That way I don't have bad data. So that's going to be really nice. Let me change this to what it recommends. Like that. Okay, let's see. So we have loaded all the conversations up, and I think we're pretty much ready now that we've added the dialogable component. I need to make a plugin for the game that will accept all of the characters with the dialogable component and I think there's like a collision component, but I'll worry about that in a bit. So I'm just gonna make a new system. Let's see. Over here, my systems they work with this plugin system I wrote for Nim. I think it's actually really cool, and I want to show it off in a actual proper video. But for now, I'm just gonna do dialogs. Just name it dialogs. Import Coral core. So Coral is the library that I'm building to help me make my games. And we have this thing called a plugin, and let me just make sure that this plugin loads. So let's go to the apothecary game. Or let's see. I should be able to. So I need to import it here and then export it here, and it should be registered. So let's just make sure that works. Yeah, so another video I'm going to be making real soon is a video about how Nim helps me write my game. And I'll just give a quick sneak peek of it, but this plugin right here is going to let me... Ah, man, the LSP isn't working. Code. Let's open up Coral. So this plugin is a thing that... It's a macro. So what it does is these functions are defined, like the functions that you can use are defined as an enum at the very top. And you pass that in as a generic parameter to the plugin system. And it will expect that these functions can be, or it basically registers them as methods that you can extend in your plugin. But you don't have to extend all of them. You only extend the ones that you want, and it will basically rewrite your game so that all of your plugins are all spread out into different files. It will basically pull them all into one file where it calls all the different functions in the correct order. It will you can set different priorities. So if you want the dialog system to take priority over a different system, like it needs to be ran first in the update loop or something, you can control all of that. And it basically there's no instance, right? There's no dialog object like you would find in like an object-oriented paradigm where you want to define like a game system. Like I don't know if anyone's familiar with monogame, but there's like a game system, which is a class that you can carry around, pass around. I don't have any instance to worry about. There's no memory being allocated. All it is just functions associated with an ID. And it's not even associated in any state. It's just, it rewrites the functions to be named, load dialogues. And it will call it when it needs to call it. So it's really cool. I really like it. It's kind of inspired by how Bevy does its plugins and entities and all that. Though I think mine's a little bit, at least it will be a little bit better. I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to speak too much, but especially since like with mine I can hot load all of these. I can just register it as a dynamic plugin, and then I have to call a function down here, but it will hot load that plugin, put it in a DLL, and then run it at runtime. So I think that's pretty cool, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done to actually make it useful. Let's see. So let's pull in the ents, and then let's import. Let's see. Import components, like so. And then we'll do for dialogable ID in view. Now we need to make sure that the player or whoever you're talking to has a spatial component, so I'll also do that. One of the reasons, and again, it's because I'm a masochist, it's got to be, right? One of the reasons why this game's taken so long to build is I'm building every part of it. So I'm building the entity system, and I had to come up with a really nice macro for it. I'm building out like all the plugins, all the graphics, everything from scratch. It's a lot of fun, but it's not great if I'm trying to make a game, Okay, so let's pull out the dialogue. Oh, and then we also need the player. So let's do for player ID in view player. And we'll also make sure the player has a spatial component. And then we'll iterate through all the dialogues. Like this, and then we'll do player spatial. Player ID, and then I want to import vmath. I'm using a math library though. I'm not going to write that myself. I'm not crazy. Okay, so let's check if the dialog spatial position. Actually, let me go back and can I jump to this spatial? So as a position dot distance to player spatial dot position, and let's make it less than. Let's do like 128. So I'll have a radius of like 128, and we'll define that up here for now. Actually, let's define this in my constants file. I'm gonna make sure it's small enough so that if I have entities that are close to each other, that I won't interfere with them. Okay, we'll do this core constants. And let's just log something. Continue. Let's enter Pendleton. Can't interact. Okay, so let's back up. We're a little too far. Now we can't interact. Let's go up here. Okay, so it's not spamming. Okay, so this is definitely a little too big. So let's go 64 perhaps. And then eventually I want to throw up like a prompt, but for now I'm just going to check if, let's bring in from Coral platform import keys. If keyboard key dot, I think, I'm trying to figure out what my interact key will be. For now, maybe I'll just do F dot pressed. And we'll start a dialog. Now I'm trying to decide. I'm trying to decide how I want this to work. Do I want this to yield? Maybe this needs to be handled somewhere else, and it should yield an event that this will later handle. I'm not sure. Can I just do this? Huh. Oh, it's because I'm only importing a single thing. Let's just import everything from here. Okay. Okay, start dialog. If I go up here, I can't start a dialog. I'm hitting F. If I go down here, I can start a dialog. Sick. Okay, so let me just add a little bit of state. Like should prompt. Let's make this false. And let's do should prompt is equal to true, like that. And actually, what I want to do, this should be a prompt for an option. Let's see. An option of ent ID. And then down here, we'll say prompt for is equal to some dialogable ID. Else if prompt for dot is some and prompt for dot get is equal to the dialogable ID. Then we want to clear the prompt. That needs to be an ent ID. Okay, cool. That way, if we're not interacting with the entity anymore, we shouldn't be prompting. So let's do that. Okay, so the nice thing about this plugin system is it is opt-in, right? So you only have access to the things that you need to have access for. When extending some kind of like class, like a game system class, you have a selection of methods that you can also implement, but those methods have certain arguments to them, and you may not use any of those arguments, right? Like if I'm looking for, let's see, let me look for if I'm looking for a bug that with like the artist, like the drawing and all that, I don't have to look at every single thing that has access to, or every single game system which may or may not have access to the artist. All I have to do is do a search to find all the draw functions that pull it in. And then one thing that's also kind of nice about my system, it's also a little bit weird. This doesn't validate the argument at all. So if I pull in the artist, every single time I have to name it the exact same as artist, because technically this gets rewritten to a different scope, a different not technically rewritten, but the way it works, the plugin works, the macro, is it looks at the arguments and it looks for any outer variable that is named the same as this. And if it finds one, it will pass it in. So if I just wanted to abbreviate it as art, this isn't going to work. It's going to crash. It's going to say, hey, it can't find a variable named art. Undeclared identifier art. So I don't know how useful that is, but I do think it's kind of nice that I can now search for artist, and the variable name is always going to be consistent. Cool. All right, so I'm gonna pull in the dialogables again in this draw function. Let's grab the spatial, or maybe not. Let's do if dialogable ID, if prompt for actually, dot is sum, and prompt for dot get is equal to dialogable ID. Then we want to draw let's just draw a rectangle at the spatial. So we'll pull on the spatial at the spatial's location. So we'll do dialog spatial dot position, and then we want to subtract the size of the thing, at least the height. So let me do that, and I think I actually want to add a little bit here. So if I do like -16, it may be confusing. I might change that, but and then let's just make it 32 by 32, and let's give it the color of white. Okay. Do we need? Whoop. That needs to be a Y. Okay, so we go here. Okay, so we can see a, wait, what? That's the wrong spatial. And I think it's because I'm not moving it with the camera or something. Actually, that is why. Artist.camera layer. We need to make sure that this is on the camera layer. I'm going to put it on layer. I have this constants file where I'm keeping these layers, but I've been really lazy. I need to go through and actually rework all of them to use specific layers. It's just while I'm developing, I don't want to have to think about moving everything around. So I'm waiting for a little bit while I build out the graphics stack and everything like that. Let's go here. All right, cool. So it's way too high, but it's at least kind of where I expected it to be. It's probably because the spatial is, of course, it's because I'm at the top of his head already. So this only needs to be like 16. Yeah, okay. Okay, so we're prompting that you can interact with them. Let's see. So we need to have like the current staged conversation that we're working with. So let's pull in conversations, which we already are since we're pulling in components. Current convo. It's going to be an optional conversation. What I want to do also is pull in the commands like this. And I want to pause the game. So Pause game. Is that it? Pause. It's just pause. Okay. It's going to pause the game. It's going to find the dialogue, or it's going to find the conversation. So we need to pull in the dialogue component. Actually, I think I should be able to do. Let me see if I can do this. I meant for this to work at one point. No, I probably don't have that set up yet. Okay, so we have a dialogable, so now we need to find the conversation. So we're going to do is it get conversation? I think we need to write a new get conversation since we have this table here. I'm just going to make this a conversation because the ID should be valid if you have an ID. I might make it an option at some point though. And then we're just going to do conversations, convo. So I don't really want you to have access to the actual table itself. I want you to only have access through the functions I provide. And let's export this so I can call it. Okay, so we have that, and what I want to do down here is in just a UI layer, so I'm just going to make it a layer 106. This really doesn't need to be that high. I'm going to make it just something arbitrary. Let's do if we have a conversation, let's just draw another rectangle. And I want to pull in the screen height and width, so let's do this. Screen width, screen height is equal to the screen size. And let's do vec2, w.float, or let's do 2float. Wait, what am I doing? This needs to be half the width minus the size of the dialog box. So we're just gonna create a constant up here. Dialog width, we'll make it 300 pixels, and then the height, we'll make it 128. Just for now. So we're gonna subtract that, and we want it to be at the bottom of the screen, so that's fine. Minus dialog height minus some margin, so like let's do 16 pixels. And then the size will be dialog width, dialog height. And then maybe we concoct a color that's just kind of, let's just make it completely black, but with some transparency. And I think we need to import chroma for that. And this syntax isn't working because I need to pull in fusion matching. So there is basically the start to some pretty nice pattern matching in Nim. It's found in the fusion matching library, and this is another video I want to make eventually. So this syntax looks a little bit weird, and I do hope eventually there are RFCs to potentially make this syntax nicer. But what this is this at symbol says, hey, we're binding a new variable called convo, and then this operator right here is actually a macro, and so this basically just pulls out conversation from it does a pattern match, just kind of like what you do in Rust. I think in Rust it'd be some x equals y, something like that. It's basically the same thing. It's just unfortunately there's a few extra characters. Not a huge deal, but it might be for some people. Okay, so we'll walk up to Tadword, I'll hit F, and nothing happens. Classic. But we are paused, so that's cool. Maybe what's happening is, maybe it's just not, maybe this is the wrong layer. I need to put it on. Let's see. Let me just echo. Okay, so we are getting there. We are getting there. So maybe I have my math all messed up. It's probably the case. So we screen width divided by 2 minus dialog width divided by 2. That checks out to me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put it at a just the top right corner just to make sure that something is happening. The height and width are all specified and all that. So let me also make this white just so we can, without a doubt, see it. It's kind of an annoying thing about not having like an editor for your game. Like you have to do a lot of print debugging and stuff like that, and kind of just, I don't know. It's sometimes difficult. Okay, so we gotta. Oh, you know what? It might be because it's a black background, and I made it black, of course. Let's try this again, but less dumb. Hey, Hypernova, how's it going? Let's see. Oh, there's a bit of a conversation going on. I missed like a lot of it. Kate is way better than VS Code. Try it. Do I have Kate installed? You know, Kate is really nice. I have used it quite a bit. The thing is, though, well, do you know if it's good for like NIM? Because I have heard a little bit of conversation for using Kate for NIM, but I haven't actually tried it out yet. Oh, it's not based on Electron. I like that because I keep trying to move to Wayland, and whenever I do, I always run into issues with stupid Electron apps that I love Electron apps. Don't get me wrong, but they're really frustrating when you have an NVIDIA GPU on Wayland in like something like Hyperland. It blows up. It doesn't work very well. Okay, so we have a nice little dialog box down there, and I think we're pretty much set to start actually doing the dialog stuff. Let me make this a little bigger, like 500. Something like that. And let's see. So we want to have some state up here for the current state of the dialog tree. We want to store the current ID. That's pretty much all we need to store. So for now, I'm going to do current dialog ID. Should probably be an option again as well. Option is a way to prevent nullability, but it can be a little bit tedious to work with sometimes. Less tedious than dealing with like a null error though, so. Okay, so if we have a current conversation, let's draw the. Let me make some notes here. So what we want to do is when dialog or current convo is sum, I want to check, or let's see, if options are greater, if the number of options are greater than 0, then I want to handle key input and selection for them. If next button is pressed, we move current dialog ID to next ID. We set current dialog ID to next ID. If next ID is the exit ID, which is just a dialog exit, which is just a blank string, then quit the conversation, unpause game. Okay. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is pull out the conversation like we did down here. And maybe it'll be better actually to draw the conversation instead. So I'm going to go back to making this a blackish color. And then I'm going to do a line rect on top that's white. Actually, I think this is line rect. I should know, honestly, because I wrote all these. Cool. So that's a nice looking box there. Let's create a couple functions up here. Proc draw conversation box. And I think we can just do this. Maybe we expect there to be a conversation already, so let's do convo conversation when we draw it. And then we can do if sum c equal to current convo. We'll do that. Maybe we'll do this in this syntax actually. And then we need to bring over some of these constants up here. Or I guess they're not really constants, but okay, and then let's create another function up here. Proc draw current dialog. And let's grab the current dialog option. So, you know, we could actually store the state of the conversation in the, well, maybe not actually, because we want to be able to write this and we don't want it to, that'd be kind of weird if you load into the game and you resume partially through a conversation, so maybe not. But what I want to do is I want to have a start dialog ID. So this is going to signify which of the dialog branches is the starting one. And I'll update demo to include that. Start dialog ID is start. And I might just make it so that if you have a dialog ID of start, maybe it'll just always go to start. Maybe there's always a start and an exit, actually. I think that'd be fine. Maybe I'll make a note up here. And then I want to make sure that to do warn when multiple start. Well, that's not really possible because it's a table. What am I doing? All right. Okay, so the current dialog ID, if we start a new dialog, we want to call a function called start dialog or start conversation. And I really shouldn't be exporting these, so let's make these local. And then we'll pass in the ID here. So start conversation, and then we'll do dialogable.conversation ID. We'll move this up to here. What'd I do? Whoops. Like that. Okay. And then we'll say current dialog ID. We'll just put it at start. You know what? I'm not going to make this an option. Because if it is an empty string, then we'll know it and we'll exit the conversation anyway. So the empty string is a valid dialog ID, so I shouldn't make it optional. Okay, so to draw the current dialog, I'm going to put this down here just because I like to think of things in order like that. We'll draw the text of the dialog. So first we need to pull out the dialog. Let's make sure we have the conversation. So convo, dialogs, current dialog ID. Let's also check if current dialog ID is the dialog exit ID, then we'll just return, because we shouldn't be here if it is the exit ID. Otherwise, we'll pull out the current dialog ID, pull out the dialog rather, and let's just draw some text. Dialog.text, and we'll use the text font, and then the position will be somewhere. I'm going to make it so that I have a function that gets dialog or get conversation box bounds. And maybe I'll make this return a tuple of x, y, width, and height. And we will put this up here. I'm going to move this up here. I want the dialog to eventually be probably a, I don't know, maybe a dynamic resolution, depending on the scale of the game, the resolution of the game, but we'll see about that. So we'll pull out x and y here. And we probably don't need actually the, let's just make this a vec2. Let's make it a position, vec2, let's delete that, delete that, and we're happy. So really, I'm just going to put it at the same position, and I'm just going to add 8 pixels of padding there. And that should be good. And then, actually, the conversation box, see, okay, let me move this back up here. Conversation box should probably draw the current dialog. So draw current dialog like that. Hey, how may I help you? Nice. So maybe that's a good moment to pause and actually make a commit. Okay. So this demo conversation, let's see, just has a start and an exit, and the next ID is exit. So if there's no options and there's a next ID, then it will just directly set the dialog ID to that. So let me go down here, and I'm just going to keep using the F key for now. I need to go through and rework. I need to actually make them abstract so it's not based on keyboard events or controller events. It needs to be some generic, hey, you press the action key or the action button. That way I can make it so you can remap them all and all that. It's on my infinitely long to-do list. So if we're here and let's see, if we need to get the current, we need to get the current dialog though. So let's create a function up here, proc get current dialog. I'm spelling it dialog, by the way, not like that. Not really for any reason besides less characters. And we will put this up here, and we'll return this. Otherwise, it'll just return a default dialog, which will have a blank next ID. We need the conversation, of course. So convo. Then down here, let's actually use it. And then down here, let's use it. Oop, what did I do? There we go. Now that we have the dialog, let's say if dialog.options.len is equal to 0 and, it's equal to 0. This should actually say something. Okay, so if the F key is pressed, we got the dialog options is 0, then we'll just set the if dialog.nextID is equal to exit, dialog exit, then we want to clear out the state, so we'll say current conversation is equal to none, and actually it would be better, since we have a start conversation, we should have a quit conversation. So current convo is equal to none. Current dialog ID is equal to the exit dialog. And is there any state? Not really. I might wrap that up into an object at some point so that I don't forget to reset values. And then we'll quit current conversation and we can just return. Otherwise, what's wrong? Undeclared field for options. What do I call it? Call it options. Maybe this is a bogus error for now. I'll just assume that's bogus for now. Otherwise, what we want to do is we want to say current dialog ID is equal to dialog.next. Like that. It might be because I named it options. It might be colliding with the got optional dialog conversation ID. Wait, where? Oh. Okay. You know, I'm looking at the chat over here and it hasn't been updating, and I'm looking at the chat over here and there's more messages. Like, sorry guys if I'm missing your messages. It's because I'm really like I haven't been streaming in a long time, and so I'm still figuring things out. Okay, so let me catch up a bit. So let's see. Dustin, what keyboard are you using? I'm using a Ducky 1 plus 2 keyboard. It's one of my favorite. Like I love the Ducky series of keyboards. Sorry, I might be a little sweaty and gross, but I love the Ducky series keyboards. I believe I'm using silver switches. They're not clicky. I decided to go with more of a linear switch. That way it's a little bit less annoying for my coworkers that I work with. Now that I'm working at home, though, I may actually just go back to like blues or browns or something like that. Um, but yeah, I really like the Ducky brand. You know, they make pretty affordable, for the most part, keyboards that look pretty nice. And I'm too much trouble with this. Which NIM game library is this? This is one of my own concoction. It's a library I'm calling Coral. It's by no means even close to being ready, but if people want to, just follow it, I mean, I'd be more than happy. It would convince me to work on it a whole lot more, because right now I'm basically just building it so that I can build my game. But if anyone's curious, maybe I'll put this in. Maybe I'll put this in the description or something like that. This is the framework I'm working on. I'm going to be pulling out a lot of the modules and turning them into their own specific libraries. That way, they can be used outside of games or whatever. Just I want to help out with the NIM community. It's really small. It's really, there needs to be a lot of work to fill out some of the required libraries. But Coral is what's called. The platform layer is currently based on SDL2. So you have to have an SDL2. You have to have those development libraries installed. There's no documentation, and it doesn't really work, so I wouldn't use it yet. But it's good enough to do the things that you see that I'm doing right now. That's basically where it's at right now. All right. I don't know why this is complaining, and it's making me confused. Okay, let's see. Is it because I named it options, and then there's a... I can't expand this thing. If I name this... Oh, it's because I haven't exported it. Okay, now we should be fine, except for down here. Let's name this dialog again. I like to have better names than that. Eventually, I'm planning on making it so you can the platform layer can be based on. Oop. Okay, so that didn't quite work. It can be based on Raylib, and there's a library called Sokol graphics, Sokol windowing, and all that. So I mean, eventually it'd be nice to support all three, but I think I'll stick with Sokol eventually. Wait, the Coral library that is archived on your GitHub? No. Okay, so there is a Coral library that is archived on my GitHub. That was the first attempt at this library. This one is just called Coral. If it's still visible, I'll hide it just so that people aren't confused. In case people want to follow along with this. Um, I did eventually at one point have a library called Coral that I did all my own rendering using OpenGL. Um, it was all right. I've learned a lot since then, so I figured I wanted to use something else than that. Okay, so the problem here that I'm running into is I'm pressing F once to start the conversation, and then I'm checking if F is pressed again later. So what I want to do is, I don't like returning from here, but I'm thinking I'm just going to return from here. Hello, how may I help you? Oh, but I'm pressing it again. No. Let's do this. If current convo is none, then we want to run this code. Otherwise, we'll continue on. Oops. Let's go here. Let's see. Let's make sure I'm even getting here. Oh, I keep pressing the wrong button. So I'm not getting where I thought I would be getting to. Is it getting even here? I mean, it should be. Maybe options isn't empty? I don't get it. Maybe I'll break out the debugger for this. We'll see. Oh, wrong button. Oh, we're not even getting there. Let me try just printing the current convo, and if this doesn't work, I'm going to try the debugger, which is going to be a little bit interesting. I haven't tried it in a while, so we'll see if it actually works. Okay, so it's none, which is what we expect. Go up here, start talking, and it's still none. What? 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 I'm surprised that Nim hasn't caught on more. I tend to agree. I'm both surprised but a little bit. I think I know why. It is just a really kind of different language, you know? Like, I mean, it looks great if you're a Python developer, but if you're a C++ developer, a lot of the, well, maybe that's a bad example. If you're a Rust developer, a lot of the stuff kind of scares you. It I don't know. I love Nim. I think is an absolutely wonderful language in every single, just about in every single way. It is kind of a research project. It's kind of a, you know, a personal project in a lot of ways too. So there are a lot of half-baked things in the language, which to me is probably the number one reason why uh, it's not super popular right now. But there's about like three features that once they're in the language and they're solid, I don't think there's any other language I'd rather write than Nim, and that is incremental compilation. It is the pattern matching, just really nice, built into the language pattern matching, and what's the oh, and then concepts. Concepts are fantastic. They're just really hard to write, I find. It's hard to conform your object to a concept. It'd be nice if they were a little bit more like interfaces. I prefer 4 spaces over 2, but the style guide says 2. Yeah, I mean, for me, I like 2 just because I'm not really. I kind of view this as a little bit like a Lisp like language, and so like everything is well structured, and at least for me, as long as there's a gap and this line is here, any spacing looks pretty good to me. And with 2 spaces, you can fit a lot more, which means you can hide some bad design, of course, but it also means that everything's just kind of easier to read. At least for me. Everyone's different though. Okay, why is this not working? So the current conversation should be set to something here, and we're never quitting the conversation. At least we shouldn't be. Let me try this. So all three of those are mostly work in progress. Like there is pattern matching. You can get by with the macro based pattern matching. You can incremental compilation. You can enable it, and in very simple projects, it works. At least that's my understanding. And then concepts work. They're hard to debug, I find. I use them in a few places. Let me see. Oh, actually, the drag and drop is probably one of my favorite usage of it. So I have a let's see. I have this concept called draggable, and I have this drag zone and drop zone. And let me see if I can. You know what? Let me demo this. I didn't want to demo this gameplay piece yet, just because there's a lot of work to it. But this is the crafting thing, so I can drag this item and then drop it here, and then I can cook, and it'll create me. I burnt it, so it's creating something gross. But if I don't burn it, then I get a potion. So this drag and drop, I want to make it so I can drag and drop a lot of different things, and so I made it generic. I made it so that you can give it some state or no state, if you don't want it. And I created this concept called draggable, and you can implement the different methods for draggable just using a macro. And same for the drop zone. It's also something you can implement. It's not a concept, but it will just allow you to call the same functions. And so yeah, I'm using a draggable right here. So this can take in either a drag zone or just something that implements this interface or this concept. So I think that's pretty cool. One thing that makes concepts different than interfaces and traits, like in Rust, is down here. If you, let's say, want to implement draggable with this card, you want to make it draggable. Well, you would do something like impl draggable for a card, right? And then you would actually define the different methods. With this, it's completely implicit, right? So if you have a variable called dragging, and it is a Boolean, and or it actually looks at the shape of the code actually. So if you can write this code right here, and you can write this code right here, and it yields this value, and it yields this value, then you can pass in that object into anything that takes a draggable. That's super sweet, and I find that it's way more useful to not think of them as interfaces, but instead think about, instead of worrying about making everything generic and all fit together and all conform to the same interface, instead the different parts that you want to work together, you just write a concept for them, and you come up with a common interface between the two at that moment. and then you can now pass that extra object into what you need to pass it into. So instead of having to, say, this is all the interfaces I want to extend, and then having to spend hours writing all those implementations, like you kind of have to do in Rust, it's very selective. You only need to write the implementation for the thing that you actually need to um, plug into, So I think it has some benefits, has some merits. It would be nice if the syntax was a lot different, honestly. I have a really hard time writing concepts. I don't know why. They make sense. It's just I have a hard time writing them. So like I think something's wrong there. Okay, so I need to make some progress on this. Let's see. If it's none, then we're gonna do this. Otherwise, we're gonna pull out the conversation. You know what? I know why. I know why. I do this quite often. I make this mistake a lot. It's because I'm pausing the game, right? So this function is not going to run. What I need this to be is I need to have a persistent update. And I need to move this into the persistent update. So that will always update even when paused. Okay, let's do that. And that way I don't even have to worry about returning anything. And actually we can even make this a little bit nicer. Whoop. Let's do an early return up here. Let's do if it's none, or if it's some. If somehow we resume the game and our current conversation is some, then we want to just set it to none, maybe. Something like that. And then maybe we can just continue on. I don't know. We'll see. And let's make sure we can actually quit the conversation. We don't need to return, so let's try that out. I think it was kind of the same problem. I'm clicking this, and then I'm doing this. So I'm just going to do a quick hack until I can think of a better solution. I'll resolve that issue when I work on my input system. Oops, go here. Hello, how may I help you? Goodbye. Done. And we're not resuming the game. So one more time, one more try. Let's try pulling in commands. And we'll resume. That's one thing I'm a little worried about with pausing and resuming in these different plugins. It is possible that I will put a resume in a branch that may or may not be called at the end, and it will just leave the game paused. So I'm trying to figure out how to like avoid that. I might make it a little bit more rigid. Maybe I'll have a pausable plugin system or something like that, and it will handle it behind the scenes. But okay, so that looks pretty good to me. We can go from one conversation or one dialogue to the next. Let me just update the demo JSON to add like a third thing. Something like this. Let's make this name just confirm. Confirm. Make it go to exit, so I'll make this go to confirm. This goes to exit, and then exit goes to nothing. And that will quit the conversation. And then next, I want to make it so that you can do branching conversations. One thing I'm really nervous about with this game is I'm going to have to do a lot of writing. And the last time I did creative writing was in college, like 5 or 6 years ago from now. My wife is really great at writing though, so I might use her help. All right, so let's put a commit on this, and then let's work on dialog options. All right. So as a reminder of what those look like, let's go to, let me change that. All right, so a dialog option is just a piece of text and then where it goes to if you select that option. So let's in here, let's do text. I'm looking for a thing. Can you help me? And then the next ID will take you to answer, and I'm just gonna. Tadward's actually gonna be kind of a sweet guy in this game, but I'm gonna make him kind of snarky because I think it's funny. And I'll just take you to exit. Let's make sure this ID is correct. And we'll just make that go to exit. Or let's actually make this go to confirm. So we have two options, and now we need to draw them, make it so you can select them, and all that other fun stuff. So let's close this out. And first, I'm just going to run it to make sure that this still loads, still compiles. Everything's working as before. Oh, actually not really, but that's because there's options. So we need a cursor that selects the option. So we're going to do option cursor. We're going to initialize it to 0. When we start the conversation, we want to initialize it to 0 again. And then same when we quit. Let's see. So we're drawing the conversation box up here, drawing the current dialogue, and then what we want to do is draw current dialogue options. Let's actually make this pass in a dialogue instead, since we have access to the dialogue. And we'll just do for option in dialog.options. You know, maybe I don't even do anything if there is no options here, so if this, we'll just return, early return. Otherwise, we have an option, and we want to draw that option. So I'll probably draw them just for now as a, maybe like a horizontal list at the bottom of the dialogue. I think that'd be fine. So we need the position. So we'll do get conversation position, and then we want to draw text, and the text will be option.text followed by the style that we want it. So we'll use the text font, and then we'll do position plus vec2. I'm going to do 0 first, and then we want to add the dialogue height minus the size of the text. So we want to measure the text. So text size is equal to option text.measure, what is it called? Measure string. Okay. And that should return us a vector, vec2 actually. So we can say, let's create a cursor variable here too. We'll start it at 0. And then we'll bump it down here. Cursor x plus equals text size dot x plus the margin, which we're just going to make it 8 pixels for now. This will be cursor x. Then this will be the dialog height minus text size dot y minus a bit of margin. Just make that dialog. Cool. All right, let's give it a shot. Let's see what that does. Whoops. Again, I just keep clicking the same buttons. It's because I was testing that dialog for a while. All right, I'm looking for a thing. Can you help me? Nothing actually. It works. I mean, I made it a little long, so instead let's make the let's make this like 640. And I want to add a line rect underneath it. Let's create a variable called position, o position. And we'll add text size.y just so it's an underline. And then we'll do text size.y or x, and then we'll make it 2 pixels thick. 2 pixels should be good. And we only want to draw that actually if the cursor is wait, did I see an error? If the cursor is at that point, at that place. Interesting. Am I hard coding like 300 or something somewhere? So I thought the dialog should resize. Oh, I am. Let's get rid of that. Okay, and we want to draw the line rect up here only if, okay, actually I need to pull in a library, so we're going to do a standard library. We're going to pull in enumerate. We're going to jump down here again. So we have the index, enumerate. The dialog options. So that gives us the index that we're currently at. If index is equal to cursor, option cursor, then we want to draw this line. Cool. So now I just need to make it so that the arrow keys will change from one cursor location to the next. And then I need to clamp it by the total number of dialog options. So let's do that. Perhaps we do this, and then we can say if keyboard key left pressed. If we press left, then we want to do dialog cursor or option cursor minus, or let's just increment it. Increment dialog option cursor. Otherwise, if it's right, we'll actually that needs to be decrement. We'll increment it, and then we'll do option cursor is equal to option cursor mod the number of options. That way, it just clamps it to the number of options. And then we also want to say check if there are options at all, then we want to do this. See what that does. Expected a bool. Let's try that. Oh, wait. Thinking too fast. If it's not equal to 0. So if there's more than 0 options, then we'll continue on with that code. And I'm a little suspicious about the modulo, so we'll see if that actually works. I really need to get that hot reloading system working, so, oh, okay, it kind of works, but if I go -1, and I think this I've ran into this before. If I go -1, let's do max. Well, let me print this. There's some detail about the way NIM's modulo operator works that I haven't quite wrapped my head around. I think it's if it goes negative, it doesn't clamp back to a positive number or something like that. Let me double check that though. So we're at 0, -1. Yep, see that? So I think what I'll do is I'll say max, well, let's say if option cursor is less than 0, then option cursor is equal to dialog.options.len -1. Cool. Okay, so let's make it so that if you select an option, it will take you to the next dialog, part of the dialog tree. So we'll say if keyboard key dot, let's just make it F again. It's a terrible key, but I just want to keep using it for now. You know, actually, yeah, I'll just keep with it for now. We want to get the option. At the option cursor. And let's see. So we want to say current dialog ID is equal to op.next ID. Let's see. There is some code that I probably need to fix or deduplicate. Where is it? So we're setting it to the next. If current dialog ID if it's equal to dialog exit, then what I want to do is I want to stop the conversation. So we'll quit conversation and we'll resume. So I wanna kind of deduplicate this code, factor out some functions and stuff, but I'm just kind of dumping the code in here just to see that it's working. Nope, see ya, goodbye. Definitely not working. Let's do and not skip. Okay, so hello, how may I help you? Nothing actually. Doesn't do anything. This one doesn't do anything. You know, actually, what I should do instead is just do this. No, I shouldn't. I should actually rewrite this code to work a little bit better. We should do else. Yeah, something like that. And then we can down here handle moving left and right and then clamping. Okay, let's try that. Okay, cool. So when I hit nothing actually, let me pull up the let me pull up the JSON or demo.json. So we see that when we hit nothing actually, it goes to confirm, which is going to jump down to here. It's going to just ask, are you sure? And then the next one is going to be exit. So I'm going to add a little option here to say, let's say no, and then let's say yes. So if it's no, we're just going to take you to the start again. If it's yes, then we'll finally take you to the exit. Yeah, okay. Okay, cool. So let's try it. Let's close this out down. Okay, so if we go nothing actually, are you sure? Yes or no? If I go no, then I'm going back to the beginning. Nope, see ya, goodbye. Nothing actually, are you sure? Yes, goodbye. Cool. And then one thing I want to do also here is if you select something, you need to, I need to clear the option cursor. Okay. And then all these, I will just move to a function and clean up this code and all that. But I think for now, this is a good start to the dialog system. It at least allows me to start introducing some conversations, start writing some dialogue for the game. Um, it's gonna, of course, it's gonna get a lot more advanced eventually. I need to make it so that certain dialogue branches will give you items or will trigger quests or will do a bunch of things. So um, I'm gonna call it there for now. I've been streaming for a little while now. I'm not actually sure how long. I've been streaming longer than I have in a while, so I'm gonna call that good. I appreciate everyone that popped in and said hello. And yeah, I'm gonna try to do these a little more often, like I always say, but this time I'm gonna actually try. So yeah, have a great rest of your day, everyone, and I'll see you later.